Welcome to the first exciting episode of The Story Of. This is a show where we are here to kind of talk about everyone's different story. Everyone has a unique story. Everyone has been through stuff. And this is a show where we can kind of delve into that. It's episode-based, season-based, and myself, Michael Bowie, Manny Lagunes, we are the hosts of this show, but it wouldn't be right for us to do this show without kind of telling our story first. So the first season is going to be about Manny Lagunes, one of the co-hosts on the show, as well as the next season will be followed by me, and then we will delve deeper and go, expand our horizons and kind of interview other people inside of the world, other people of all sorts that have a different background, because you could be walking down the street and you meet somebody and it's cool, you get to know them, but you don't know their story, and I think that is a very good thing with this show. So welcome Manny for being a guest at this time, even though you're a host on The Story Of. How are you? Manny, are you frozen? Well, if Manny is frozen, I'm going to go ahead and at least still jump into things with the show. This episode, should I say, is going to kind of talk about Manny and his life growing up as a Mexican in Mexico and inside the United States. He was somebody who went through a lot, just trying to transition himself between different countries, as well as dealing with having to deal with deportation. I think that's the bigger story, the climax about it all. I see that you're back, and he's currently in Mexico right now after dealing with deportation, so that's probably why we might have some internet issues, which we will try and get fixed before next episode. Manny, thank you for being a guest here on The Story Of. How are you?
I'm well. Thank you for having me, Bowie. As you mentioned, I will be a co-host here, and eventually we will get to hear your story as well before we dig deeper into sort of our audience's stories, right? The people out there that have difficult lives just as I've had, just as you've had. So I'm happy to be here, and I'm excited for the show.
I want to do this order a little differently. Like, usually we would talk about you growing up, but because we have two hosts that are going to kind of tell their story in two different seasons, tell the people how you met me, how we became friends, how you know me.
Damn, well, this was about 8 or 9 years ago. We met at a place formerly known as Briarwood Mall Red Robin. It is a gourmet burgers joint, but really that's just a fancy way of saying it's a expensive McDonald's. No, I'm just bullshitting. It's a restaurant. We met at a restaurant, working at a restaurant, and it was actually some of the...
So we're dealing with you freezing again, but I'll finish the story just for those that kind of want to know a little bit more. So he worked inside the kitchen, no stereotype or pun needed for that, and I worked as what was called an expediter. And so I would expo the food, and what that means is that, the cooks would cook the food, they would put it on the tray, slide it over to the expediter would kind of put the finished work on it, make it look like the picture, and then the food would go out to the table. And I think we worked together, I'm guessing maybe around 3 years, maybe 4 years worth of time we worked together inside of this restaurant. And we actually hated each other. We literally were at each other's throat at one point. I won't lie. But then it got to a point where, we became good friends. We would go play basketball together and everything else. So that's a little bit about us and how we met. Can you tell the audience a little bit about you, like your backstory, where you came from, how your story started?
Yeah, well, I was born here where I am now in Mexico, the state of Hidalgo. Both of my parents are actually from this state. They're both Mexican. And I spent just over, I would say, 15 years living in Michigan. My story is a little unstable because there's a little back and forth going from my childhood to my early teenage years to me growing into the handsome young man you guys see today. So it's a little unstable, but I will say, I'm proud to call sort of Michigan home. That's really where I was. My formative years took place were in Michigan.
Okay, and so when you came over to the States, what was that life like?
it was definitely no cake in the no park. What is it? No walk in the park. Um, but my parents made it work. They took me and my siblings over, looking for a better life, and I'm glad to say they found it. We found it, on all aspects, the education side of things. I'm happy to say I graduated from one of the best high schools in the nation, not just the state. My parents, they did well financially, building something for themselves, sort of jobs and companies, etc., and just providing us with the necessities that we couldn't really have here in Mexico. Again, unfortunately, through X and Y reasons, I find myself back here. But nonetheless, life in Michigan and America sort of prepared me, I would say, in a lot of different ways for what was to come later on in my life.
Now, just out of curiosity, because you said that you came over here, when I see like movies and I see, Mexicans crossing the border, is it as easy as just you walk, a couple of steps from Mexico and all of a sudden you're inside the United States? Is it like they portrayed in the movies where there's a bunch of Mexicans in the back hiding in a truck and then, someone brings them up to the border? How did you get across? Is the life like that, and was it like that for you?
Well, I listen. When the latest time I can remember was when I was 9 years old, and what I can say about that is it's a lot like the movies in the aspect of walking day and night in scorching heat with no food or water, not knowing what's going to happen next, right? It's not as easy as just saying, let me pick up and go. There's a lot of decisions that go into it, a lot of planning. You got to map that shit out, like, to the very last detail. So it's not so simple. It takes a lot of guts, but at the same time, it's like they got some sort of it right, some sort of parts of it right. There's a lot of different ways you can cross the border into America. You can be smuggled like packages in trucks. You can, go in boats, like, the phrase that they have, fresh off the boat. You can swim over, or again, in my case, you can sort of walk over. But there's a lot of things, again, that you have to be aware of. There's law enforcement, Homeland Security.
What is that consequence if caught? Is it shot? Is it just captured and imprisoned? What are the consequences if caught?
Again, it can be anything from just being sent back home to losing your life. So when you're dealing with like law enforcement, they might lock you up for a couple of days, process you, and find out where you come from, send you back. If you're a repeat offender, they might lock you up for a little longer, 2 months, 6 months, etc., etc. Now, if you deal with like some organized crime and they find you, sort of on your way, again, you could very potentially lose your life, lose any money you have on you. I don't want to talk about too deep, but some sexual assaults happen to immigrants that are crossing the border, both by organized crime, law enforcement, and just private landowners that own sort of areas in Texas, Arizona, California, that are bordering to Mexico. So there's a lot of things that could happen to you.
Do your parents speak English fluently?
Not fluently, and I mean, you might say I don't even speak it fluently enough.
Oh, I can definitely say that.
They can definitely get their point across. I'll put it like that, right?
So how did you come to learning the English language then?
Well, again, all my education came from America. My elementary school, middle school, my high school, right? So there was no like, oh, I'm not going to learn English because, I'm Mexican. No, it's like either you learn English or you're not going to get ahead. They're not going to keep you in ESL classes forever. At some point in time, the school administration says, you know what, you have to learn English because we're not going to cut you any more slack. You've been in the country for, 3 years, 5 years, 6 years. So for me, luckily, though, it was a fairly quick process, I must say, of learning English. I learned English in the span of maybe a month and a half. This was in the 4th grade. When I was in the 4th grade in elementary school, they placed me in ESL classes, English as a second language. That's what ESL stands for. And again, I sort of, picked up the language fairly quickly. And again, I'm still, sort of developing it and finding,
The
how to put it into words. But
one of the other things that I noticed that is common is like this whole like taking a social security number. Is that something that had to be done? Is that true? Or those kinds of things? Like how did you get here and get by through all this stuff without a social security number to be able to apply for like a driver's license or anything else? How does one survive stuff like that?
so to and paying proper taxes, right? Because there's a lot of talk that goes into tax evasion and whatnot, but that's not the case with with illegal immigrants or people that sort of go through this process. So yeah, again, it was I would say if I had to, it would be thanks to the deferred action by President Barack Obama, former President Barack Obama.
Okay. So I'm getting word because we are live here. Getting word that we're having some difficulties where people are not able to hear us. So hopefully all of that gets squared away. If not, we will recap here over everything and kind of close out the show. So you at a young age were kind of brought over and you kind of learned English at a very young age and everything. And so I kind of know what the problem is too. I'm getting word from production on how everything is operational. So can you just give me a summary again of how the whole Social Security thing, obtaining that is?
Yeah. So yeah, again, in a sort of a shorter summary version, Michigan law is made to protect women and children. It doesn't matter if they're illegal, legal, black, brown, or white. So as a child, you do not need a social security number to enroll in school or receive health care, right? God forbid any children are actually working in the state of Michigan. We don't run sweatshops in the state. So once I grew up, though, once I became of age, 18 years old, actually in 2014, 15, my timing might be a little off, former President Barack Obama passed a deferred action for childhood arrival, which basically said, if you've been in the state for at least 10 years before the age of 14, I believe, you are eligible to get a social security number, a work permit, and that is what I went through in order to get my social security and be able to obtain a license and credit score, all kinds, even enroll in the military draft. So that's, I guess, the short version of it.
So this has been a kind of an overview, kind of learning your opening experiences before we kind of delve deep into the story and are able to get to that overall picture of the struggle that you've been through with deportation and some of the crazy stories that you have while dealing with that. This is the first episode of the story of. We've had technical difficulties. I'm here inside the States. You're here inside of Mexico. We will try and get them fixed and figured out. On through the company Bowie Films, my company, we produce a lot of different shows. A lot of them are pre-recorded. This one is one of the live shows. So bear with us, people, as we kind of get things figured out. We have a long journey to kind of ahead of us to get through in order to tell Manny's story and get through everything. And as we move along, things will get better and better, more progressive. I want to thank Manny for being a guest here on the show. And we all look forward to hearing more about your story and how this progresses on the next episode. Is there any closing statements that you kind of want to talk about before we end the show?
No, again, just I'm excited to be a part of it. As you said, I want to thank I guess you and Bowie Films for considering me to do this project, because I do have a story to tell. You have a story to tell, and just like us, there's people out there that have a story to tell. So again, just excited to be a part of it, man.
Yeah, I appreciate you being here. I don't, as long as we've been friends, and even since, you were deported. I don't know your whole story about what happened. Whenever you left the restaurant, just lack of communication stopped, and somehow we came back to talking as friends and whatnot, and then I found out that you're not here. So to hear your story, it's all brand new to me, and I know for as long as we've been friends, you don't know my story and everything that I have been through while out inside of California pursuing my dream inside of the entertainment industry. So this is a chance within the first season and the second season to learn more about the host before we jump into other people's lives and kind of learn about some of the crazy things, because I have many friends and other people that I don't know that have a story to tell, that have been through some shit that would blow people's mind. So thanks again for being a part of this. I want to thank everybody for tuning in, and check us out next Friday at 10 o'clock here on The Story Of. Thanks for joining us.